Glad the rest of you stayed. We're almost done. This is a home stretch. Now, with a panel, that's what this mic is for here. Panels have to do with questions. So anybody that wants a question, line up in front of this mic. And we'll do as many as we can in the time. Okay. And the questions can be directed at any specific speaker, or you can throw out a general one and let anybody answer it who wants to, however you want to do it. Maybe you've got one that you think anybody could answer. But if you want to direct a question to a certain speaker, say so. Can it be turned the other way, do you think? Like that, I would think. Okay, but anybody wants questions, start lining up over here. Now, you know our speakers. Some of the ones have only been here for a day or so. This is Carol Pate, our psychic detective. Tony Trimble, our animal psychic. Don Shore with the elder gods and the ancient history. And you know me, okay. And Marilyn Harper, who is the psychic, and she did the Akashic records. We have Ron Chapman with his Seeing True and his, he's talking about how you can change your life and create another new life for you. He was the one that kicked us off on the first day. How you can change your life and everything going on in your life. Then we have Nancy Talbert, who was here last night with amazing pictures and all the information about the crop circles. Some of the other speakers had to leave early, so they're not here. So, okay, now we're going to go with questions from the audience. Okay.
Hello, my question is for you, Dolores. You had mentioned to get to the new world, which is where I would like to be, one of the things we have to get rid of is fear. How would you suggest the best way to do that would be?
Okay, because I was saying you had to get rid of karma and fear. They said start thinking for yourself. Don't believe everything you hear on TV or read in the papers, because a lot of it is propaganda and is put out there to make you afraid. It's part of a control. They said start thinking for yourself and looking behind the scenes and asking lots of questions. Carol's nodding her head too. You agree with that?
Oh, yeah.
Go
Absolutely.
ahead.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Well, go ahead and say something about it also.
What I've learned is fear is dark. It will stop you from learning. It will hold you in place or make you flee. You need to be afraid of fear.
So you need to do whatever you want to do, you think you should do, whether you're afraid or not.
If you have a gut feeling that this is not the way to go, if you have a clenching, you do not need to go that way.
Okay.
That's all you have to do. There are no risks unless you feel that clench or you hear, don't do this.
Okay, thank you.
Marilyn might make a comment too about it.
So the way I worked at overcoming fear, I'm hot now, is counteract it with love. You know, those things that we fear the most are going to continue to come up over and over and over again. And so send love, surround yourself with love, anchor your energy, see where the core is to that fear, and go into your meditation, go into your Akashic records, go into your guidance system and ask them, where is the anchor? Where is the core? Then when you deal with that core, then you can release it.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
I have a question for Don. You mentioned in your speech that after the flood there was a remnant of the Cro-Magnon that was kind of the savages that were left behind, and that the Homo sapiens were taken up and then reintroduced to save that strain and let the others more or less go by the wayside. What happened to that remnant Cro-Magnon that did survive the flood?
They eventually died out. They again became feral from all indications, and were the savages, the few savages that survived the flood and then the disease and the famine afterwards. Mm-hmm. And again, typically on a high mountainous area. typically just died out, lived out their useful life, probably around 24, 25 years old at that time. And, perhaps even the bulk of them prior to the return by the ancient ones with the descendants of the very, very few fully modern man, true people that they took with them. The Epic of Gilgamesh, in particular, indicates that the seed of all life was taken, on the ship before the flood to be saved. And to me, that meant DNA.
Right.
So there was not this pairing of 2x2s on Noah's Ark and so forth. Fauna and flora were DNA were extracted. Their DNA were extracted, and a few fully modern man, Homo sapiens sapiens, were taken on board, probably as part of the crew even. And obviously it would have been their descendants because they were gone from roughly the 10,500 BC time frame until roughly 93 to 9200 BC. So they were gone for quite a while.
Yeah. Well, my question was about, was there any interbreeding back to that or not? And obviously you've answered that no, there would not have been.
Yeah,
Thank you.
it doesn't appear to be any that, at least that I have been able to uncover. Thank you for your question.
I actually have two questions. The first one is for Tony, and that is, do you have any techniques that we could use to learn to communicate with animals ourselves?
Well, what I usually tell people to start off with is learning how to meditate first. And I don't mean that you have to sit there and do this for an hour. There are a lot of good guided meditation tapes on the market. All you really want to do is quiet your mind. The next thing that you need to do is make sure before you meditate that you ask a question that you'd like having answered. Whether, is my dog sick? Is he hurting anywhere? And then you have to wait and expect an answer. And sometimes that answer doesn't always pop right out. But the first thing that comes to your mind after you've asked that question is your answer. And I always recommend people keeping a journal because there's no other way for you to self-validate the information that you get during and after meditation unless you have a journal of some kind, and then go back and read it.
And does it typically come through the answer? Would it be like a physical feeling of pain in a shoulder or a hip or a knee, or would it just be the thought that my animal needs attention in this particular area, they're having stomach aches or whatever?
There's a lot of different things that will happen. Yes, you could have a physical feeling yourself. Sometimes when I'm reading for people, like a horse or a dog will make me want to sneeze or cough, So yeah, you want to note all the things that you're feeling because that's what you're trying to do, is open up all your senses. We've been taught to shut those all down as modern society has worked on us, over the centuries. And used to, when we were hunters and gatherers, like this Cro-Magnon, we were very much in touch with that sensitivity, but now we're bombarded by everything else. So I've had people say to me that they were listening to the radio driving down the road when the answer came to them, or they were reading a magazine and suddenly their question was answered when they looked at the magazine. So I think you have to keep your mind open, basically, to any way that they'd like to communicate that information.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have one more question, and this is for Nancy and for Dolores. And I'm very curious as to whether or not that young man, Robert, has or is intending to have Dolores regress him and do a session for him.
No, he's not.
No?
Oh, Robert he works completely alone. And I've noticed I have the same instinct, although I think he has it much stronger. What people here are saying is know yourself, pay attention to what's inside. And Robert knows this, that what he needs to know, what he needs to do is inside him. And if you pay too much attention to what other people are saying and other people are thinking, and it can interfere with your own knowing. And many people have tried to become involved with him, to approach him one way or the other. And it is not disdain. It is not that he dislikes people at all. It's that he knows very clearly that what is inside him is what he's supposed to be paying attention to. And it's through that he will do what is helpful or useful for the world.
Maybe he can pick up on people's intentions better.
You know what he did at Easter? I had brought him a present, and it was a secret. I don't usually bring him presents, but I had this idea to bring him an Easter basket, and I didn't know if they had Easter baskets in Holland or not. So I went to the 10-cent store, and I bought a basket, and I bought all the stuff you put inside, and I bought chocolate Easter bunnies and eggs and things, packed it all in my suitcase, took it over. And when I got there, I said to him that I had a present, but he couldn't have it until Easter. Well, he starts, what is it? What is it? And I hid it all in the room. A couple days later, he came and said, I really want to know, what is it? And I said, I can't tell you. It can't happen until Easter time. But he sits down at my table, a piece of paper there and a pencil, focuses, and what does he draw? An Easter basket, Easter bunnies, Easter eggs. He knows to pay attention to what is inside him, because it's taking him where he's supposed to go, and has shown he's curious about other people who do this same sort of thing. He pays some attention once in a while, but most of the time he's paying attention to this inner voice.
Thank you.
He's got more psychic abilities than he realizes.
Both of us we're finding. It goes back and forth.
You are. You were influencing a lot of that more than you think you were.
I was trying like crazy not to think about
Yeah, but
it,
I
so
bet
he wouldn't
you,
get
I
it.
think you were. Okay.
Hi, my question is for Dolores. You had spoke about the waves that come through. I was curious about the light workers, because I don't think I fit into any of the waves. But as light workers, can you just tell us a little bit more about why we are here? And I mean, I kind of know that, but I mean, just as to what you've gotten.
Well, they're part of the whole thing. You volunteered to come and help at this time. And I guess the light workers who say they're light workers are more aware of their mission, where a lot of the other ones don't know. They just feel lost and feel they want to go home. They don't know where home is. They're unhappy here. But the other ones have found out why they're here and their purpose. You're part of the whole thing, but you'll become aware of it. That's what I think.
And where
Carol, I think, can answer some of that, can't you? The light workers? Put you on the spot. Okay.
Basically, you're here to learn as much as you can possibly learn what is truth, learn what isn't truth, and apply the truth and be an example and to teach and to use the truth on a daily basis, however you choose. What I've learned is they will present to you what you need. You don't have to seek it.
Okay.
Good, because that's a lot of stuff, man.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But see, you're more aware than the average person of what you're supposed to be doing.
And I think, and it's weird to know what we're to do here. Like you said, some people don't know what that purpose is, and I
Well,
think
sometimes you're not supposed to know. If you would know, you would defeat the purpose. If that's
Exactly.
that way, okay.
But over time, as I've evolved, I feel like that I've learned more what my purpose is.
Okay.
You know, and that is a big question, as you said, to someone to ask, what is my purpose? Why am I here? So, okay.
You have a comment, or do you disagree?
Oh, no, I agree completely. I think that our purpose is to live our joy, and in doing that, it all comes through. The light workers, along with the first wave, second wave, and third wavers, are here to help with the shift. And just exactly what Laura said. I agree with that. Do you have anything to add to that?
Well, actually, I do.
Good.
Okay.
For those of you who were here for the first presentation Friday night, I don't think I recognize you from the audience.
Sorry, we didn't.
No,
today,
that's fine. I would suggest forgetting about what you're supposed to do. I would suggest that
That's easy. Good.
that
Yeah.
doing, trying to find out the doing is the problem. The mystical path would suggest that if you get quiet on the inside, which you all are talking about, it will find you. You don't have to find it. You don't have to do anything. But you do have to get quiet enough that it can manifest, blossom through you. And that's the last thing in the world, in the material, egoistic world, that's the last thing we want to do. We want to go out and scurry around and make things happen.
Yes.
That's the human programming on Earth. And so I would encourage you to start finding ways to get very, very quiet on the inside, because then whatever is there will simply blossom effortlessly.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Oh, well, I don't
Or
have
maybe
trouble
you
with
mix
that.
it up. Body for a reason. And to go ahead and scurry around and do stuff, that's fun too.
Yeah.
But it seems to me to have also that ability to be very quiet and still and listen. I mean, I like my body. I'm glad, I don't like my body, but I'm glad I got one.
Yeah. We'd be funny without a body anyway.
But there's an interest. I want to highlight something that happens is, and it happens every place I go when I talk about getting quiet and dropping the doing. The ego gets threatened. The ego is identified with some kind of doing.
I know that.
And so, but what becomes interesting is what people hear me saying is, so therefore, don't get out of bed, sit on the couch and hope that God's going to pop a hot dog through the keyhole for you. The difference is the mystical path would say, when you get quiet, you get your direction for what's to be done next. In fact, the phrase is, listen for what wants to happen. Then the doing is the expression of what wants to happen, not what my ego, which has all kinds of interesting ideas, most of which are deep in mischief. The quiet will reveal that which needs doing, and then I become the instrument rather than the doer. And that's where all that is harmonious has a chance to happen, because I cause a lot of trouble when I get caught up in my plans for my doing. I don't think I'm alone in that.
No, you're not.
Yeah.
No.
And yet I do understand we are built to do something. The problem is in my programming that gets off into its own adventures, rather than waiting for the guidance, the way to be made clear, and then moving into action.
Okay. Cool. Thank you.
You'll find it. It'll come clear to you.
Thank you. This is for Nancy. Pop circles. You may have mentioned it. I'm sorry, I'm hard of hearing. I didn't hear it if you did. I'm curious as if there is any food value, nutritional value left in the crop circle material.
The grains? The grains.
Yeah, she means the stuff that's flattened inside the circles. Nobody knows. There have been no nutritional analyses carried out that are in any way reliable, and so nobody knows the answer to that. There are people who have made beer from, the flattened barley and wheat and stuff, and people say it's good beer, and other people have made bread. Lots of people make bread. They go in and harvest the flattened crop and then, grind the seeds up and make bread. But no one has had the money or the expertise to do a nutritional analysis, so we don't know.
But you also talked about the seeds.
No, but it has nothing to do with nutritional analysis.
Well, nutrition, no, but they're
what's the content of those seeds, what the elements, the vitamins and all, we have no idea whether they're the same, different, or what. Sorry. Give more money to BLT research, then we hire more scientists, and we maybe find a nutrition. That's what we're looking for, is somebody to do that sort of work. But unless we have a volunteer, some of our scientists are volunteers, but some of them aren't, and those we have to pay just normal fees. And all of the money that comes to BLT and all of the money from these speaking engagements does not go to me. It goes to the BLT, which then pays for these services that have to get done. So if you've got a rich uncle, grandfather, something or other, remember us.
But I think it's a big discovery where you said they're able to grow in drought and without sunlight, without water, and that's a big discovery.
We don't know if the nutritional value is any different.
But it does have a more abundant growth, so that's a beginning.
A huge increase in yield yield meaning more seeds
Yeah.
and bigger seeds, not a change necessarily in the nutrition.
Okay.
Carol, I think it was you that mentioned that they had found marine fossils on top of the Sphinx. Now, does that indicate that that part of the world was sunk below the ocean or something?
It was underwater. It's definitely underwater.
That would fit in with Don's
Yes.
story of the Great Flood.
Well, the Sphinx has been eroded by water. And when you see the fossilized sea anemones on the tail and the ear of the Sphinx, you have no doubt. How else could they have gotten there?
So,
And the lines on the side of the Sphinx, too, they said shows it was eroded by water.
Eroded by water.
Yeah.
I think that Casey had said in one of his readings the Sphinx was 12,500 years old or something like that, which goes beyond conventional wisdom. But Dolores said that was talking about making the shift to the new Earth. Now, if we're lucky enough, say I'm lucky enough to go with the shift, should we even be concerned about historical perspectives of this sort?
Be concerned about the what part?
About the historical perspectives like the age of the Sphinx and that sort of thing.
Yeah, because there is so much stuff that is buried.
Mm-hmm.
When I was on the air one time on a radio show talking about Atlantis, and I got an email from an archaeologist, and she was very, very angry. She said, "How dare you go on the air and talk about something there's not one shred of truth that it ever existed?" And I said, what I found is a lot of the evidence is not there. You're never going to know it because a lot of it is underwater. A lot of it is under huge mountains of earth when they had these, the earth moved also. So you're never going to find evidence of a lot of these things. So who knows what's going to happen? There's a lot we don't know that's been destroyed.
Will this even be a matter of concern in the new Earth, though, is I guess what I'm wondering about.
I don't think we're ever going to lose our curiosity. I hope not. To want to know things.
Oh, I will thank you.
Okay.
Testing. Can you hear? Am I in the right place? No, really. I want to thank you all very much for all that you've taught us, all of you. And I have been reminded here of something curious that quite some years ago I was told when I was in northern Idaho out camping with a few people that I was told by a light in the sky when there was no moon and nothing but clouds that I am from Sirius, the planet Sirius. And that's Sirius, no? And I was told by a person who was also at that it was a Native American ceremony thing where there was a lot of conflict. He told me I was from Sirius B. He said A are the people who come to do something or other, and he said Sirius B people are come to Earth to help people and teach people. And I have been told separately that I'm a survivor. And I wasn't thinking about anything in particular, but I read your books, I'm going on, and I've been told I'm a survivor, and this is for years. And I realized more and more it means I'm a survivor of whatever kind of things are happening in the earth changes. And so my question is what sort of kinds of help or thing I should learn or do as a survivor, on what level, or what can that mean?
You're surviving.
You're doing it.
No, I mean, helping, it's following my intuition, I guess, because I used to want to know everything about everything, and now I just want to know how to get people to take Bach remedies so they won't suffer. I'm focusing apart from meditation. But a survivor would mean, does anyone have some other ideas about what it would mean, what I could do?
I get the feeling that she needs to take herself seriously. Frankly, that's exactly the intuition I'm getting, that you don't really take yourself seriously. And if you did, this would become clearer. Now, I'm not quite sure how people learn to do that if they don't know how to do that.
So you say I should take myself more seriously?
You should.
I should.
The sense I have, and just what I'm getting, is that playing a bit of a game. And if you stop doing that, you'll know exactly the answer to this question, that you don't really understand what you've already told us. Well, I guess it's a little hard to believe.
No,
You get
I'm
people
listening.
telling you from Sirius, maybe that's a little hard to
No, I was told, the thing is, I don't want to be or care anything else, but it was out in camping in a place where...
Yeah, but I mean, what you're saying here is, what are you supposed to do?
Yeah,
Nobody else
being a
knows
survivor.
exactly. You're the person who can find
Being
what
a
it is
survivor.
you're supposed to do. And the way you find that, I think, is by really paying attention. You're taking yourself seriously. And then whatever that voice tells you, that's what you're supposed to do.
Yes,
That's what I think.
Thank you.
Was it Richard Bach? Was it in Johnson Living the Seagull or The Illusions, where he said, "You're still alive, your job's not done, you're here for a reason"?
I've read so many books for so many years, but now I've started trying to live instead of read books. Is that a good sign?
That's a good sign.
That could be a good idea.
And the Bach flower remedy resonates with the Syrians. And so that's why you're drawn to that. So, you know, there's Syrians all over the planet, believe me.
Oh, I'm sure.
And so call Oversoul to Oversoul and have the Syrians come to you to buy your Bach flower remedy.
Thank you, Mom.
Well,
I don't know.
It's humor, but that's because that's the way I can deal with reality.
Now, there's picking up on something you were saying, though, that I think is really valuable. I don't know who might have read the book The Black Swan by Taleb, I think his name is. But in there, he explores the story-making nature of our humanity. What we do is we create stories out of whatever information we have, and then we promptly invest ourselves in a delusional understanding of the story. It's what we do. What another teacher calls it reification. We turn it into flatland, right? And so part of what I was picking up on what you were just mentioning is, I get curious about the story, quite honestly. The story about what it means to be a Syrian. Because what happens is, what Taleb suggests is we're story-making creatures. Something shows up, we interpret it, we create a story, which may or may not have any validity. And then we play out the story full-time, all-time, as if it's absolutely, positively true. But we never step back and say, I wonder what alternative possibilities there might be in that story. I mean, when you talk about taking yourself seriously, it's like, oh, I wonder what that might mean. I wonder what other possibilities there are that lie there, other than the ones that we fall into. And nobody's to blame. We just do stories. It's what we do. And the mischief, one of my favorite words, you all probably figured out, the mischief is that we stop thinking, we stop being open-minded, we stop exploring, we invest wholly in a story that may or may not be an accurate interpretation. So I just dig into it and say, well, I wonder what this could mean, and see what presents itself.
It happened a long time ago, and I hardly ever mention it, I hardly ever think of it at all. But it was very brief. But it was curious to me. If I believed the light in the sky, it's because the man, who was a very unusual person, who I never saw again or before, told me the same thing. And so I thought, well, you know, if you get two stories from two places, okay. And I went in my tent and meditated, is this really true? And I was told, yes, it's really true. But I didn't know what it means. I say, well, okay, so what? But to help people to be a survivor, every day what's going on in the earth, right here and in Arkansas, anywhere, United States, more and more we need survivors. We need people who can survive all this stuff that's going on and not be influenced by all this junk on the TV or whatever. So I like this. I call this the underground. We're survivors all. Thank you very much.
Okay. We're going along with what Ron said, too. In my books, it said, you are the actor, the director, and the playwright of your play. You write your script as you go along. But that's all it is. It's just a play. It's just an illusion.
And
You're doing it as you go along.
And I had a very wise man tell me that a great way to live is to stay first out of other people's stories, stay out of their films, right? And then secondly, try to stay out of some of your own films.
Okay.
And I found that to be very good advice.
Didn't realize it's just a story anyway.
It's just a story.
All right.
I have several questions. First, Don, about the gods of antiquity. Would you consider the Elohim and Sunat Kamara and Ancient of Days gods of antiquity?
I got the, would you repeat that? I'm sorry.
I have a question about the gods of antiquity and maybe who some of them were. Would you consider the Elohim?
Okay, let's do it individually. The Elohim were the outer planet human-like beings.
Okay, that clears that question.
Okay, then the next one.
Sunat Kamara?
Could you spell that?
No.
I'm not recognizing
Okay.
that.
I think
sorry.
you're too close to the microphone. It's distorted. Maybe that's part of it. Back up a little bit. Okay. What was the word?
Closer. Because they're further away. I don't know. Now I forgot the other one.
What was the second
what was the
one?
word?
Yeah,
Sunat Kamara.
Not tomorrow.
So he supposedly came to Earth with 144,000.
never ran across that, period.
Y'all
Never.
are familiar with 144,000 somebody?
Well, the religious articles and
Yeah.
the biblical text and so forth, but the Sumanara or whatever.
Sunat Kamara.
I repeat,
Okay,
I've
never
never
mind
run
then.
across that one. That's
Now I
what
forgot
threw
who
me
the
in.
other person was.
Oh, no.
So I'll go on to my next question.
You weren't thinking of the Anunnaki? Or?
No, I know who the
okay.
Anunnaki
Okay.
are. But I have always wondered about the Elohim, who the Elohim were, because I have several books on them, and I was kind of curious who they were.
Same as the Anunnaki.
Okay.
The outer planet, human-like beings, the colonists.
I really wish I could remember who the other person was now. Then you talked about, we talked about the earth, where it would divide, okay?
Yeah.
And you were also, you talked about how the Cro-Magnon man was let die. So this question has to do with both of that. When the earth divides, the humans that are on the earth, are they going to, do you feel that they will be let die like the Cro-Magnon man because they are so evil or they no longer need to exist? Remember we talked about the earth
they're
dividing?
just going to continue their life.
Uh-huh.
And many of them will die because of all the disasters.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think the whole thing will be wiped out. The whole race, if that's what you're talking about, I don't think that will happen.
The experiment will continue on, but in 3D,
Yeah.
in 3 dimensions.
Just be a different route. Because they said eventually everybody will get to the new earth. They'll just take longer.
Okay.
Depends on their development.
And then
it won't destroy everything. They said they can never destroy the entire human race. There must always be something left to continue on.
But won't
too much time and effort has been put into the production of the human race.
Won't they be on the other earth, the 5th dimensional earth? Won't the humans be on the 5th dimensional earth, or will that no longer be human inhabited?
The ones who are going to go to the other earth, the other ones will stay with the old earth.
Okay.
If you can understand that. It's complicated.
No, I just keep forgetting my question.
But it's not going to be a destruction of the whole human race.
Okay. Thank you.
Are you going to be around? Is that where we're going with this?
Well, I hope I'm around.
I mean, is that what, is the...
I think Don had another comment.
Clarify on the Cro-Magnons. They died out naturally. They were not bad. They were not being punished. The elder gods, when they left in preparation for the forthcoming great flood, they had limited space. It's that simple. And you now have version 1, Cro-Magnon, or actually version 362 or whatever it was. But then you have the latest version in fully modern man, us, Homo sapiens sapiens. So with limited space and so forth, the few live specimens that you're going to take your latest version. So it wasn't a matter of, geez, we don't like the Cro-Magnons anymore. It's just, we'll take the latest version and we'll save them. Obviously, we perfected the Cro-Magnons in the form of the latest version, Fully Modern Man. So that was the only reason. They had nothing to do with them being evil or anything. The Cro-Magnons were anything but a brutish, savage cultural species or branch. They were very, very advanced. Again, not like the extraterrestrials that visited here, but for the age that they lived in, they were light years ahead of the Neanderthals. And so
they were good at surviving.
Well, they very quickly just dominated the planet. Once they appeared in numbers, and Neanderthals just didn't have a chance. The good game went to the Cro-Magnons, and the Neanderthals starved.
Actually, it's a question I have wondered why one stayed on the planet and the other didn't. Not too many think about that kind of question, but I have thought about that.
Don explains it in great detail in the first book about the different the primitive mans and why one were left and the others weren't, and how it all. He goes into a lot of detail about it.
I've got something I really would like to say about that. The survival of primitive man. One of the original people in BLT with John Burke did a lot of research on natural earth energies and discovered very clear areas, places, where there are these very strong magnetic fluxes. They can be measured, with magnetometers. And most of the ancient pyramids, the dolmen, the stone circles, etc., are all built exactly on these places. And today,
vortexes,
no, these are areas of very strong magnetic field strength. And in Tikal, for instance, in Mexico, in New England, in the horrible roofed Indian structures, built of stone. In England, the dolmen and Stonehenge and Avebury. In Egypt, the pyramids. All of these places are built on these unusual magnetic anomalies. And furthermore, John discovered that if you took seeds of indigenous plants from those areas and put them in the centers, there's a very precise location relative to the anomaly itself, what happens is exactly what that machine that Levengood built does. You get increased growth and yield of those seeds. Now, he's written a book about all of this. It's on the BLT website. And what his implication for ancient civilizations and why some survived and some did not was that he thinks we know that people who are temporal lobe unstable, that this is something you're born with, people who are temporal lobe unstable are very sensitive to these magnetic anomalies. They know where they are. They can find them. They don't necessarily know what they are. They simply are aware of them. These people also tend to have visions. A person like that in an ancient society may have stumbled across one of these very intense locations, let's say, and realized there was something unusual going on there. There are also plasma discharges that occur at these spots, and some of these discharges are visible to the naked eye. So the theory was that in ancient cultures, I think it's 4% of the population is in fact temporal lobe unstable. Of those people, some of them discovered these spots in all the different continents where they lived. These people became the shaman, the sacred people in each of these tribal groups. And the basic idea is that, okay, Joe is one of the shaman, and he's got a brother, and the brother's a farmer. And one day the brother stops by his brother Joe's place, which has now been built in the shape of a beehive, more or less, right on this anomaly. And he stops and talks to Joe for an hour or so. He's got a sack of seed over his shoulder while he does this. Then he goes off into the field and plants his seed. That year, the yield is 3 times greater than normal. It wouldn't take too long before people started to think, well, if you stop at Joe's house, they wouldn't have to know why, but if they thought, if you stop at Joe's house before you go plant your seed, you get a much healthier crop. More crop means more food. That means the group survives through much rougher winters or whatever. And this is John's idea as to why many of these ancient monuments were built. They were built to mark these places because the ancient people realized that their seed was enhanced when it was exposed to these. They didn't know why, but it didn't matter that they didn't know why. They knew it did happen. And that then gave a huge food resource to a group of people who might not have had it otherwise and would therefore perhaps have died. The book is called Seed of Knowledge. I can't remember. It's on the BLT website if you go to the published papers section. And it's a very interesting book.
It makes sense, you know.
Yeah.
It's a
Well, if
theory.
you pray over certain things, you improve the energy of it. So seed could be like praying. I've done that. You pray over water, you pray over essential oils, it improves them. So I can see that happening. The other question is, do you feel that the gods of antiquity have returned to help us? I mean, I think that's... Does anyone have a comment on that?
Well,
They never left, let's put it that way.
Okay.
That's basically
they never
true.
left.
When they went into exile in 3150 BC, they went back to bases on the moon. The Apollo program, again, is touched on in the book in the first and second volume. The astronauts were aware of other people beating them to the moon in 1969. So they left Earth in exile, but they didn't leave our region of space.
They stayed here with us.
Yes, and they have been observing us. If one wants to, you know, if they're part of the UFO phenomenon, they probably are.
But they can't, you're not supposed to know they're there because that'd be interference.
Precisely the case.
They never left. They're still watching us.
They're not shy in that respect. Everyone wonders why you constantly hear the anti-UFO crowd. Well, if they really exist, why don't they land in City Hall and come out and meet the mayor? And the obvious is they're under a mandate. They're under exile right now. I honestly do not know what the terms are for the expiration of that exile. If it's a specific date, such as the Mayan long count calendar's end time, December 21st, 2012, or if it's a more ambiguous date, such as the next major global catastrophe that might hit Earth, you're then allowed to come back. To help us being the outer planet, human-like beings that colonized. And again, there are very few of them left.
I notice you don't give them a name.
Well, actually, it would be nice to know their home world, so they could either be Meldekians or Martians, I guess. But period, there's no amount of research. I think I did a share, can really determine if their home world was Maldek, the planet that was destroyed, or Mars. I personally think, well, all of the common sense, the major indications indicate Maldek by far. You know, if I had to pick, it'd be a 9 out of 10, maybe a 9.5 out of 10 for Maldek, and a 1 or a half for Mars. On that same hand, before they were destroyed, they had space capabilities, the outer planet, human-like beings. And they had bases on Mars or Maldek, whichever wasn't their home world, they had bases on it. They also had bases on Earth. Absolutely no question about that.
So are there still people on Mars?
Yes, there are. Yes, in my work there is. They're living underground.
Okay.
Well, that's in the times after the evacuation of the few people, the few survivors from the Maldek disaster, they were housed on Mars as the primary off-world settlement, I guess one could say, and that's another reason why everything points to Maldek as the home world, because if it was Mars, there would be more survivors from the disaster rather than the extremely few outer planet human-like beings that did survive the Meldak disaster. As conditions deteriorated on Mars, they did go subterranean, and it was all at the equator. The best living conditions, as the conditions deteriorated, ended up being at the equator, which would be natural, and subterranean from the standpoint of more constant temperature. So everything went that way. That's another reason why when they did colonize here, they went to the highest mountaintops. It was more like Mars. They went subterranean. All the major complex of tunnels throughout the world, such as in South America. This was home to the outer planet human-like survivors. Now, with the split that I referred to in the talk this morning, where they had a war between the dissenters that wanted to colonize Earth and their dissenting group that thought that the effort should be spent on improving the conditions on Mars because they were continuing to deteriorate, rather than spend time on warfare or space capabilities. They were wiped out. But the split itself at the time, you wanted to know a name. I refer to the bad, if you will, the colonists that became gods on Earth. I refer to them as the BOPH beings, the breakaway outer planet human-like beings. And that was to differentiate them from their counterpart, their cousins, if you will, on Mars, the lunar Petrae. That group was a very compliant, very helpful group to the ancient ones, and from that group, the ancient ones picked their helpers, the intermediaries that worked with the humans. The typical leaders of many of the early settlements on Earth were the helpers of the ancient ones, and they ended up being the rulers of those individual cultures or civilizations that they were sent to guide and educate, help, and so forth.
Thank you very much.
Okay, but in my work, a lot of the ones that we're still coming to observe, they come from all over the galaxy. They're assigned to a spacecraft. It's just like Star Wars, all these different types. And some of them can't go home because their planets have been destroyed. They live on the spacecraft. So you can't put a name or a home world on any of that. It's just like being in the service, you go where you're told to go.
Thank you.
Okay.
My question is directed at Dolores. Can you hear me?
I can't hear you.
My question is directed at Dolores. And being a mother of 3, I've spent some sleepless nights being concerned about this division of the new Earth and the old Earth.
Yeah.
And
I know where your question's going. Go ahead.
Right, because 2 out of the 3 are not in the same line of thinking that the other daughter and I are in, which we are here right now. The other 2 weren't interested. How can I make that more or less painful when it comes time to split? I don't like the thoughts of leaving my children in a negative situation.
I did a lecture in Minneapolis at an expo, and afterwards these people were telling what they were saying. They said, "Oh, it sounds beautiful and wonderful. I'm ready to go, aren't you?" And this other one said, "Yeah, but what about my husband? What about my children?"
Right.
And the man said they all have to make their own decisions.
This is what
you can't
the
do it
daughter
for them.
that is here with me today keeps telling me, "Mom, It's a soul decision, and it's theirs, not yours.
It's their life, their
That's
karma,
right.
whatever they decide. You
But
can't.
how do I take the maternal pain away?
You can't live other people's lives for them.
Well, that's true.
They have to live their own, and we have to give them the freedom to make their mistakes or whatever they're going to do. But all you can do is throw out ideas and then see if they accept them, but you can't make anyone believe anything. They have to find their own way, and like I said, they will all get there eventually.
Just
some of them will
take
take
the
longer.
detour or two, huh?
Some will take longer than others, but they said eventually everybody will get there.
Thank you.
What you can do, if you just feel as a mother, you have to do something.
Yeah, mothers
One of the
do.
I understand, I'm a mother. One of the proactive approaches is to hold the space for their awakening. Hold the space when you speak of them, instead of, words carry a primary intention. So when you speak of them, speak that they're awakening, they're triggering, they're opening up to their divine destiny, they're getting it, instead of saying, when are they ever going to get it? So, because that means when, that holds it to where it doesn't hold the energy that it's going to happen. So hold the focus that it is happening. Feel what it feels like in your emotional body to for their awakening, for their getting it. Kind of like what Nancy did last night with holding the image and then he photographed it. Same thing, same kind of approach. Use your words to reinforce that primary intention, and then it'll be easier to happen anyway. It's got a chance.
Okay.
But they always say, walk your talk anyway, and they'll notice.
They'll get there, huh? Thank you so much.
Okay.
At the risk of heresy, I'm going to say something, and I know this will be offensive to probably more than you. The notion of maternal love is nothing more than a justification for our trying to hold a soul in a form that we want them in.
In other words, we don't want to let them go.
That's reinforcing the idea of maternal love. It's called control.
No,
No. I don't. I know there's love. I'm not suggesting there's not love at work. I'm suggesting that we create a story like that justifies our clinging to them, when in fact real love does not cling. And so there's a human thing that sneaks in. And a thing we can do is take a look at that. We can ask ourselves a question along the lines that you were just going down. We can ask ourselves a question that says, so what's my problem with letting them be? What's my problem with letting them have whatever evolution it is, knowing that their soul is intact whether I see them again or not? Why am I fearful, to go back to something Dolores was actually talking about, why am I fearful that if it doesn't continue to be in the form I want it to be in, that's a bad thing? I mean, and that's the reason I'm hesitant to even say it, is because I know that sounds horribly harsh. But the reality is, if I'm clinging to people, if I'm insisting on them holding their form for my pleasure, I'm not doing anyone a service.
Yes, but there's a difference between clinging to something and controlling it. And I'm going on this great vacation, and I want you to come along with me. And it's just we are tribal people. We are our family units, or even our spiritual family. If I have something that I've found that's really, really good, I want you to come too. You know, and it's not that I'm going to control you to get you to come to. That is free choice. But it still takes our desire of sharing that love and that excitement and that to know that there's something besides fear,
right,
and something besides that.
And by asking the question about what I'm clinging to, whatever mischief is in there gets a chance
You're
to get
implying
out.
she's clinging. She's not clinging. She simply has pain. The
I'm-
idea that people she loves may not have the same joy she has.
I'm suggesting it's a good question to ask.
Yeah.
I don't see any sign she's clinging.
I was thinking Carol may have a comment. Do you have a comment on that? Okay.
That's a good time ago. That as a mother, as a wife, we tend to do benign control. Now, we do it for multiple reasons, which are usually very positive. We want to protect our children. We want to protect those that we love. And so we think it's our job to show them how to, because we've had years of experience that have been passed down to us from our parents, God help us. So we reach out and we try to push them this way and share with them over here. But you have to love them enough to respect their choices, good, bad, or otherwise, because otherwise you get in the way of their lessons. And they need those lessons, just as you have needed yours. And you do it with love and with faith that they will make the right choices, they will make the right decisions. But if they don't, let it be okay.
So I guess it comes down to unconditional love.
Yes, it does.
Thank you. That's one thing they have said. Don't carry your children around on your back. You'll only make you sick. And they said,
I learned that lesson.
And they said, don't take your children's lessons away from them.
Oh,
We always want to fix
Good words.
everything.
Thank you.
Okay.
Wow. Such a powerful panel. This is a toss-up.
Okay.
I have been through some guided meditations to the city of Telos in Mount Shasta, a couple of them, and my question is, can you give me more information and knowledge about those beings that live there and how they are also connected to the beings with like Titicaca in South America?
The beings that they say live on top of Mount Shasta?
Oh, inside.
Inside Mount Shasta.
Inside.
She said it's for anybody. Anybody want to answer that?
The beings that live inside Mount Shasta and the connections, the earth beings that are connected to there's a whole realm of earth beings that are combining it's not a physical tunnel, but a connected energy, whether they're in Lake Titicaca or somewhere else, but there's a whole realm of earth beings. The beings that live in Mount Shasta are mostly, from my information, ET energy that has come here and it's an undercurrent of transformation of the planet in helping with the shift and holding the stabilized energy. That's what I know about the beings. Now, whether they're the same folks that you're talking to, I don't know. But that's what I know of the beings, and there's a whole undercurrent. They're connected at Mount Shasta, they're connected at Crestone, they're connected at Stonehenge. There's a whole realm of, if you draw a line of the meridian that goes through the temple, the pyramids at Giza, Stonehenge, through this area, Crestone, the Mount Shasta, those are all connected on a meridian line, and so they're working in the planet to assist with the shift from that direction.
But what I've got is probably a different thing, but these are actual physical people that do live in the hidden cities underneath the earth. Yes, the whole tunnel system connects them all. And the tunnel entrances are under pyramids all over the earth. The tunnels were put in first, and then the pyramids were put on top of them. There's a whole civilization living in this underground, under the earth. And boy, they're way, way more advanced than we are. But those are physical beings. They have no desire to come to the surface. They have their own light source
my question.
And everything.
Thank you very much. After 25 years of being a retired teacher of the gifted and talented, I have been to many, many, many conferences all over the world or in the United States, and I would like to say that this is the absolute best conference I have ever attended in my life. Namaste.
Oh, thank you, thank you. That makes it worth all the effort. That one compliment. Okay.
Mine is too. I have a question for all of the panel. Have any of you seen ETs?
Any of us what?
ETs. Have you seen them yourself?
No.
Yep.
Yeah. You haven't. Huh?
Cheryl says, you said you have?
Yeah. Okay, I have two, and it was probably in the 90s. And there was 3 of them that came. They were the Greys, and they did a body scanning, which I do that too, so I know what they were doing. And I had a chip put in me too, and that was the last I heard of them or saw. And I didn't know where they went, you know. And I started telling stories about them, and all of a sudden I had 2 CIA agents in my life, and I had the other one, what's the other one?
FBI?
The FBI, yeah. All of a sudden 3 men came into my life, and they all belonged to those different agencies. And I was offered a job and everything, but you can't quit. And I said, no, I don't want that. So then everything in my house disappeared, all my IDs, my divorce papers, my social security number, my birth certificate, all my life insurance policies. My telephone was tapped. I had black helicopters above my house. And I got really scared, so I quit telling my story.
To whom had you been telling the story before?
In a big meditation group, which had one of the CIA agents in it. So that's how I was, being watched. So anyway, recently, I've been doing a lot of meditations now in groups. And I don't know who was it that said that meditation in groups is much bigger? Okay. Well, they're back now. So anyway, they came to tell me that I need to tell everyone that they're here and not to be afraid of them, and that they're here to help us through this transition. And in my last group, there was about 11 people there, and 3 of them appeared, and they said that they wanted to touch people on the top of their head, but that it was anybody could choose not to, but that they were there and they wanted me to tell them that. So I told them that, and immediately about 4 people in the room said, wow, look at this, all the stars and the sky and the universe. And there was only 2 people in the group that I know didn't get touched because they didn't see any of that. So we got to go on a trip with those people. But the message is for everybody not to be afraid. So if you see an ET, don't freak out. They're here to help us.
Say, pick me,
Yep.
pick me.
Yeah, pick me. Thank you.
I'd say get a magnetometer, get a camera, get a bunch of other...
Document it.
Okay, I want to follow that. I'd like to hear
What's
more about
happening
that.
to all the people who have not asked any questions? Don't you have any questions? A lot of it's the same people over and over. Isn't there somebody else there who's got some other questions? Okay, she's coming through. Okay. I was thinking a lot of you just listen, but I know you've got questions.
I don't know if this is for Tony or Dolores, but if we're lucky enough to go to the New Earth, what about our pets at the time?
A lot of people ask me that, and they'll be there before we get there because it's no different than when the tsunami hit. My son went through Hurricane Andrew, and he had his horse with him. The horse got sick and made him take it home before the hurricane hit. They have this intuitive knowledge that we're not privy to yet, and I would say to all of you, just watch your pets.
Okay.
When they start wanting to leave or they get very agitated or something like that, don't scold them. Just ask them, where are we going? But this will happen long before the actual split. Dolores, do you think that it's going to be just this sudden big bang? I don't.
No, they said it's gradual. It's happening now. We're in the middle of it now.
So I was thinking if it was actually in 2012, the young animals that I have, it would be unlikely for them to normally die before then, but
It's not going to end. I said that's the culmination.
Yeah.
We've reached the height.
It's not the end. It's simply just a transition, you know.
It's a transition.
That's all. It's just Chief Seattle said that death was not really death. It's simply a change of worlds. That's what we're going through. We're not going to experience a death.
Right.
But our animals also, they're very pragmatic about death. They know there's a beginning, a middle, and an end. And they know when the end is here, it's like, oh yeah, it's the end.
Well, when you mentioned the horse, I thought maybe you meant the horse had died, before Hurricane Andrew.
Oh, okay. No, he hadn't died.
Oh, okay.
No. He started getting really agitated. He got really nervous. It was very interesting because he was in a corral and he kept staring off in this one direction. And so after the hurricane hit and after I knew my son was okay, I said, by the way, what direction did that hurricane hit from? And he said, oh, the way Chopin was looking. So, this horse knew for a week before it even occurred. I didn't even know it till I got home on a Sunday, and Monday morning I got up and saw the pictures of Hurricane Andrew hitting Baton Rouge.
So the animals will transition with us, our pets anyway.
They do.
So.
Well, we need them.
I know.
We need their presence. We need their ability to feed us. They're aware of that.
Oh, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Thank you. This has been wonderful. One of the many things I do is work with an EPFX skill biofeedback, and a number of times it has come up that someone has a temporal anomaly. You talked about that, Nancy, the first person I've heard mention that. I want to know what it is because, I have no explanation on the equipment.
Well,
it says they need to be treated for it.
It can be. This temporal lobe instability is the term that's used in medicine.
Okay.
When it's very severe, it's a precursor for epilepsy and other sorts of cataclysmic events.
Okay.
But many, many people live with temporal lobe instability their whole life, and nothing is different for them except they're more sensitive to certain things, one thing being magnetic fluctuations. They perceive them very easily and very readily. Sometimes they also can see visually plasma discharges and things which most of us can't. But for most people with temporal lobe instability, they figure I think it's 4%, if I remember correctly, of the population has always been this way. They're simply born like this. And it is not a big deal except in extreme cases when you've got something like epilepsy you have to deal with.
Yes, out of about 100 and some odd people, I've had to come up with about 4 people. And one's a shaman, I know. And another one has teeters on schizophrenic type situation.
Yes.
So
schizophrenia
that makes sense
is
with
another,
what you're talking.
Yeah. And I think that, I wonder, I have a friend actually who has a boyfriend who's diagnosed as a schizophrenic. And clearly is a classical schizophrenic, but she doesn't deal with it the way the modern medical community does. She's very accepting of the fact that he simply lives a different life.
Different life, different way.
And it's very interesting to watch. He does go off on he has behaviors that are coming completely off the wall periodically, but often he does not. And when he is not, he's extremely sensitive, he's intelligent, he's articulate, he's,
marches to a different drummer.
Yeah, he couldn't live in society as it is structured because he simply cannot. But she takes care of that part, which then seems to allow him to have a much more normal existence generally than the doctors would ever believe, because they don't do medicines or anything. So, if society were structured differently, schizophrenics might be able to live perfectly happily in society.
I agree. That's probably true. Thank you.
Okay.
Well, the first thing I want to address is what you just said. I hadn't thought about that. I do have a temporal lobe anomaly. It's been diagnosed. But I also rolled my car in a blackout years ago when I drank. So it could have been from that. Oh, yes. But since my grandmother was Cherokee and myself and my son have all had visions from earliest childhood that we remember, and we see things and we talk to spirits, and people who have passed over come and tell us things. I'm not, maybe the temporal lobe.
That sounds more like.
Okay, but my brother is schizophrenic, and this is what I want to say to you. I had never thought about that. I recently, May 1st, put him in a constant care facility, but he did live with me. I took him off the streets. He lived with me for 11 years. He's been schizophrenic since we were children.
The medications
He has always
help him at all?
talked to ETs. He has always talked. His writings, he's a poet, all of his writings, all of his magazines, you know, National Space Association, everything has always been. Okay, so thank you. Thank you for bringing that up. It gives me a whole different light. I have a question, because this is where my confusion's always been. I had always wondered if I was perhaps a walk-in, but then I didn't think I was, because I remember all the way back to my childhood and being very angry because I was from the stars and wanted to go home. You know, and I can remember always going outside at night and talking to the stars and talking to the people that's my family. And okay, but the walk-in part, well, that's what I'm trying to put. Okay, when I rolled my car, and it rolled and rolled and rolled and flew through the air long distance, I had severe head trauma. Now, my personality got even, I mean, my ability to use my strengths and healing and working with animals became even stronger after that. So how could I remember past lifetimes and do also what I'm doing? I have a rescue ranch, and do what I do now with animals and people, but still remember living in the stars. That's like being schizophrenic. To me, it's like two lifetimes.
No, it's not schizophrenic, no.
Well, but you understand what I'm saying?
Why does it matter?
I remember living on the stars, but yet I remember past lifetimes.
Sure.
I don't understand that.
You've had both. You've had it all.
Why is it a problem?
I didn't know you could have it all.
Certainly.
I thought you either lived on the stars or you lived in this world lifetime after lifetime after lifetime.
And you lived on the stars lifetime after lifetime, learned everything there. You come here learning things here.
So I'm actually bringing those memories with me too.
Yeah.
I didn't know I could.
Oh, certainly.
I've
There's a whole lot others you don't remember too.
All right.
You're limiting it. You're limiting it limiting it to a great degree. You've had hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of lives of every kind of description.
Yeah, I can remember a lot of them.
You're remembering some, but that doesn't mean that's all there were.
Yeah.
So I did live on another planet. I really did.
Yeah.
Oh.
I've written about it. It's in my books. Lots of people
I just
have.
bought a whole bunch of your books.
Lots of people have. This is part of. That's what I said. This is one school. There's a lot of other schools. Everybody in this room have lived on other
So I'm
planets.
not a walk-in. I could have had all these
walk-in
experiences.
is a totally different thing.
Right. If
All
you
right.
were a
Thank
walk-in, you could still retain the memories, though.
Yeah, you could.
It's not that it's not like they're erased. If you were a walk-in, then you get the files of the previous walkout, and you can. It's like going through a Rolodex. You can
The
still
walk-in
find
would
them.
have memories also.
Absolutely, I'm a walk-in, and I remember my childhood.
Yeah, they have their own memories.
Right.
But you're limiting it because everybody here has been on other planets and other dimensions. Now you're in this school. You've had lives here.
This is new for me. Thank you.
See, I've done thousands and thousands of people. I've heard this over and over again.
All right.
No, believe me, it's possible. You're okay. You're not schizophrenic. No, you're perfectly all right.
No, I didn't mean I was schizophrenic. I mean, it was like living a schizophrenic existence,
No,
though. You know what I'm saying?
No.
Like, here I am over here, remembering my star lives, but then remembering this earth lifetimes, and I just, okay.
Perfectly okay. You're normal as anybody else. What is normal, anyway? Hi, Ruth.
Hi. I have a question. I have a friend who has a daughter who is 13 now, I think. And the child has always been headstrong. The dilemma is that because she has trouble paying attention in school, they put her on all kinds of medication. And I think it was when Gordon Michael Scallion or somebody was talking about the children being on medication.
I was just talking about it. I
to
talked
this?
about it in my talk just now.
Oh, okay. All right, sorry.
Okay.
All these people are talking.
Okay. Yeah.
But anyway, the reason that I'm asking this is what kind of suggestion, because I have said to her that I didn't think that it was good for her daughter to be on medication. However, the doctors say, that this is best for her. So what kind of advice can I give to this mother who is like at an impasse because the school is complaining and the doctor's complaining, and she's a single mother, so she has lots of problems with this.
Yeah. See, that was what I said in my lecture, is you're supposed to refuse the medication, say no to it. And the kids are just bored is all it is, because they already know the information, and they're having to sit there and listen to it repeated again and again and again. And their suggestion is to give them challenges, give them something different to do. Okay. Even if they just tell them to tear something apart and put it back together again, give them something outside of the classroom to do something to help with their learning in their mind.
One of the things she said that the child has a hard time paying attention.
Because they're thinking he's disruptive. She's disruptive.
Dolores?
But he shouldn't be on the medication. No.
Okay.
Yeah.
And in all respect for you, you're not a doctor.
No, but I work with doctors.
I'm just saying that without knowing this child and without knowing this child's circumstances.
Yeah, I can see what you mean. I'm drawing assumptions.
Be careful, because the child, I don't know the child either. But one of the reasons that people, if you get into areas where you don't really know what you're talking about, then what you do know, people don't pay so much attention to.
But see, what they're doing wrong is the schools are prescribing.
Well, you don't know this child is all I'm saying.
Yeah, but the schools are prescribing the medicines, not the doctors.
It's very difficult.
The schools are sending the notice home. The person takes the thing to the doctor doesn't even see the child often, and they just prescribe the medicine.
Regardless, all I'm saying is that in a case where you don't know the individual situation, you might maybe do harm where you absolutely don't mean it.
Yeah, I see what you mean, because I did kind of jump to it, but they were always saying the medicine does not help if they're this type of a child, the new children.
Okay, and one just kind of a funny aside, the comment that was made about the children already know the answer.
Yeah.
A friend of mine, her grandson is only 4 or 5, and he was on a travel trip with his father, who's an over-the-road truck driver. And he was doing something, and the father said, "Don't do that." And the boy didn't answer. And so the father said, "Did you hear what I said?" And he said, "Yes, of course I heard what you said. You don't have to tell me a second time," which was exactly what was said in the speech.
Okay, but she's right. I'm probably jumping to conclusions. But the majority of these kids don't need, they're different, they're special.
I don't know. I have no idea. I'm just saying, I know that when you don't know the details of a situation, and particularly when it's a living person, a living creature, I'd be real careful.
Yeah. Okay, is that everything now, or we? Yeah.
That's a very good point.
She's bringing up, natural things are much better. There are lots of natural things that can help more than these other drugs.
This woman, she works strictly with children, and most of them are ADD. And she counsels parents and tells them what to take out of their diet. Of course, the sugar, and give them lots of fresh fruits, live fruits. Just basically what Doris said our diet should be to be light beings, that's what those children should have. They shouldn't have the drugs to suppress it. The diet will help enhance and control that hyperactivity.
Yeah, because every drug has side effects. Herbals and natural things have no side effects as long as you know what to take. That's why we're pushing toward the natural medicine. Yeah.
Hello. I just want to, in defense of whatever, for children, some of them absorb a lot of anxiety out of the house itself.
Yeah.
Okay, that needs to be brought to everyone's attention. So these children need to have an energy worker or someone release those blocks because they don't know what to do with it. It goes ping, ping, ping in the body, and these kids do not, they want to put them on Ritalin to control them. But what they really need is an energy worker or someone of that sort who understands releasing the blockages. I have another friend who works on children all the time, and she said a majority of them that come into her who have some control are mad because they have to be here. So she just puts it to them, you chose to come here, you need to get off your royal whatever, and to be more responsive. She then takes care of helping them release some of those energy blockages by different types of therapy, art therapy, or whatever. But, sometimes it's just an energy blockage that needs to be released. So
makes sense, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead, yeah.
I was one of those kids, and there are a lot of children that have been born onto this planet and are continuing to be born here that come from other places, come from other planets. And the problem we have, most of our medical community, if you can't give it a pill, you can't x-ray it, you can't do blood work, they're lost. And when you grow up as a child like that in a very restrictive environment, and you are a light worker, there is a light at the end of the tunnel. And you can get past that. If you have a parent who just says, oh, what would you like to tell me? I have a customer in Ohio, and she's got a very intuitive child. And I've known her since the little girl was 2 years old. And she would make statements like, back when I was your mother, we did this, this, and this. And when she first came to me, she said, I don't know what to do with her. And I said, just listen. Just listen. She's from the other side, and she's still new to the world and trying to find her place in it. And in a way, I do agree with Dolores, and I know that we have to be careful. I mean, everybody's different, but sometimes medicating that is like giving someone a lobotomy. From 30 years ago, why would you do that? Let's try to find a different pathway to help them.
Well, I was just wanting to offer something that they might want to try that.
Right.
There are chemical
Right.
imbalances.
Yeah.
And if they truly have a chemical imbalance that can be verified, then maybe medicine is possibly an answer. But in general, they really need to look into stuck or blocked energy.
Yeah. But you remember when we were kids, wasn't there always somebody in the classroom? There was a bully, somebody was causing trouble, somebody that, they were just those kind of kids. They were overactive, and that was just the way they were. We didn't think about putting anybody on medicine. They usually outgrew it by the time they got out of certain age grades. Nowadays, they think you got to be this way or you put them on a pill.
I had several teachers that have come to me saying that drug companies made deals with schools that if they would go ahead and get a block of children, which was 100 children, they would give them $1,000 for their gymnastic whatever. This is true.
Yes,
I've heard it through several teachers, and they said, I feel like I can tell you. I can't tell everybody out here. Now, I had a boy that was brought to me, It had an IQ of over 200. He was totally, absolutely connected. He was 9 years old, and they were doing everything in their power to put this child on Ritalin. His father was fighting it, and they took him to court to try to force Ritalin on this child. And these things are happening. Greed. Greed.
Yeah.
Now,
Like inexperienced teachers lack more worthy.
yeah. The important thing to recognize is that you need to make people aware. Have them look up Ritalin on the computer. See what it does.
Empower the parents.
Yeah.
A lot of the parents aren't willing to take the responsibility. They say, hey, let's do this because of this. Well, they're too cool. They already know.
Yeah.
They don't, you know. And if they just look in their eyes and talk to them, like you said, and really find out what, and find out ways to make sure that they have the ability to do whatever they really need to do. Like this little girl was just on TV the other day, and she just made $200,000, for a charity. So finding something they really want to do. Okay, she's helping a whole lot of kids.
But this is not utopia.
She's going for $3 million to do this for autistic kids.
We can't save everyone, but you can put information out there. And if they choose to inquire, if they choose to do something, that's fine. But we're going to have this problem.
Well, and more of the teachers need to realize that it's okay to, be able to allow kids to be able to contribute, but no child at the time has put the restrictions on.
Not going to happen.
That way, if they just really want to teach the right.
Yeah, the kids should be allowed to be an individual. No, but they don't all fit the mold. Okay, let's have this be the last question because we are running over.
I want to make one observation.
Okay, these are important
I'm going
questions.
to ask you all to take a breath. There's a reason for that. Nancy and I were just chatting. We just contributed to the fear in the world. That's what we just did. I'm not blaming anybody. I'm putting it out there. What just happened was we just heard a series of anecdotes, all of which are true for a circumstance, none of which should be generalized to everything. And what we just did was we fed on it. People are venting, but what we did was we began to feed on it.
And here I said to get rid of fear. Here we were
right,
reading
and and the reason I felt Nancy was warning me about not saying anything because I know we can go on and on and on, but I'm just trying to help us see that what happens is that something inside us gets tweaked, and then we launch. That's what we do. That's human. And the useful thing to do at times is to step back, if we can, take a breath, and say, so what was going on there for me? Because when I have that happening to me, my fear is getting provoked by something. And I externalize it. I blame the drug companies or that bad teacher or that bad physician or that bad lawyer or that bad whatever.
So what you're doing here is implying that there's no reason for them to be upset. Of course there's a reason.
No, I'm asking people to take that step back, take the breath and say,
For what reason? Why? They already know what the problem is.
The breath was so that each child would be able to speak and everyone would be able to listen and they could work as a team to come up with a solution, not a fear thing.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's have one last question because we're way over time.
Please do not push drugs. Okay, my grandson, the school wanted to put him on drugs because he was extremely hyperactive. He was extremely hyperactive. But there were others that told my daughter, don't put him on drugs, including myself. And I'm getting very emotional about it. But he didn't go on drugs. And he's 17 years old now, and he's turning into be a fine man without the drugs. Okay. Marilyn, you said you were walking. Please tell us about it.
I don't know if we have enough time.
And it is an interesting phenomena, and it's a transformation within my own life, and the phenomena of being a walk-in, and Dolores has an interesting, different take, which was a new take to me.
But I've written about the normal walk-ins
right.
too.
And what happened to me was I went into the hospital with complications for a surgery, came out. All of a sudden, I couldn't wear any of my clothes. I didn't like any of my old friends. I wasn't the same kind of person at all, and my son didn't hardly recognize me. And so it was a major transformation. I spent 2 years thinking that I was insane because I didn't know what had happened. And then through the discovery, which is, that may be what my book is, through the discovery process, I learned about walk-ins, and began this spiritual journey. And that's a whole talk unto itself.
We could do a whole lecture on it.
Absolutely. Maybe next conference.
Okay, we could focus on walk-ins.
Yeah.
But I've written about it in Between Death and Life. There's a whole chapter on it in there. But that's a normal walk-ins. Now I'm finding out different things. I think we've really gone over time, but I do want to appreciate everybody who's been here at the conference, and I thank you for coming and your contribution, and it's really been wonderful. And thank you all. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.